What's up, Narwhals, and welcome to your Ravine Writing Choice Board. In this video, I'm going to hit you with some comprehension questions, some ELA class topic questions, some creative writing options, and I'll give you some supports at the end. But before we get into the specifics of what you're going to be writing, let's talk about the basic minimum expectations for your sixth grade writing when you submit something. So here's some specific expectations we have that you already know how to do because you're in sixth grade. So when you submit something, every start of a sentence should be capitalized. Every name should be capitalized. Every sentence should end with an end mark, like a period or a question mark or an exclamation point. And you have briefly, at least briefly, reviewed your writing to ensure that it makes sense. More like that, I guess. Every assignment is going to have different expectations, additional expectations too. Like for this one, you're going to complete a number of these activities and questions I'm going to give you, but not all of them. There might be other expectations that I give you in real life, in person, such as length requirement or other things that relate to what we're doing in English class. We just read the Ravine. Let's do some comprehension questions. Comprehension questions are kind of like facts about the story. There's not a lot you're going to have to figure out here. It's more like, were you paying attention? All right, I'm going to read through all of them pretty quickly. Number 1, where does the story take place? Number 2, who are the characters in the story? Number 3, why do Vinny and his friends go to the ravine? Number 4, what happened to the boy who had visited the ravine before? Number 5, how does Joe Boy tease Vinny during their hike? Number 6, what is Vinny afraid of when it comes to the ravine? Number 7, who jumps from the higher ledge first? Number 8, what does Vinny's mom warn him about regarding the ravine? Number 9, how does the setting of the ravine affect Vinny's thoughts and actions? And number 10, what decision does Vinny make at the end of the story? Part 1 was comprehension questions. Part 2 is ELA class topic questions. While we were reading the Ravine, I probably brought up a bunch of the terms that you see bolded on the screen right now. Well, you get to pick the number that I tell you in real life to answer of all of these questions. So you might want to write down the line and go plot, setting, and tension. Or you might hop around and pick the ones that you already know well. That's okay with me. But you're going to get to a point where you need to hit the certain number that I tell you, and I'm going to tell you in real life, not right now. And if you don't know something, you need to work on that. And if you need to figure out what any of these things mean, like maybe you forgot that exposition is the beginning part of the story where we are exposed to basic character and fact information, or that dialect is when a character is written with his dialogue to sound like they have an accent. If you bump into something that you want to answer and you're not quite sure what it means, use your resources to figure it out, or if it's an appropriate time, hunt me down in class. So I'm not going to read through all of these stories, but I will tell you 11 is about plot, 12 is about setting, 13 is about tension, 14 is conflicts, 15 is protagonist, 16 is exposition, 17 is dialogue, and 18 is dialect. We've been working on these, and for pretty much every story we ever read, we're going to talk about really all of these throughout the story. And now let's have some fun with our writing. We're going to do some creative writing. So you get to pick one of these options. 19 is write a new ending. Imagine if Vinny decided to jump from the ledge. Write an alternate ending that explores how that decision would change the outcome for him and his friends. Number 20, Vinny's diary entry or journal entry. After the events of the story, imagine that Vinny writes a diary entry about his experience at the ravine. What does he reflect on? How does he feel about the choice that he made? And number 21, a letter to Vinny's mom. Imagine Vinny writes a letter to his mom explaining why he went to the ravine even though she told him not to. How does he describe his experience? What would he want her to understand about the situation? That's pretty much it for the assignment. Everything I talked to you about so far might be enough for you to just go. But if you need supports, I'm going to give you some helpers. I'm going to give you some sentence starters and some ideas. However, I do want you to individually decide whether you think you need these supports or not. If you don't think you need them, it would be a better learning experience to try to not use them and then use them if you possibly do down the line. I really would prefer you not just jump in and immediately use the supports. But remember, you got to take some ownership with how you're going to develop as a writer. It's really up to you. And here are some supports for the comprehension questions. Part 1. For number 1, you could start with the story takes place as your sentence starter. For number 2, which talks about the teenage characters in the story, there's 4 of them. For number 5, how does Joe Boy tease Vinny during the hike? And you might use a sentence starter, Joe Boy teases Vinny during the hike by reminding him of. And number 8, what does Vinny's mom warn him about regarding the ravine? And the help I'm giving you is, remember, Vinny's dad gave the opposite advice. All right, guys, now we have part 2 supports. This is for the ELA class topic questions. I isolated the ones that are probably going to be a little bit easier. And let's drill down on one of them so you understand what to do here. Let's take a look at number 12. So 12 is about setting. How does the author describe the ravine? How does the setting contribute to the mood of the story? All right, so you have 2 questions about the time and location of the story. Under each of these, for the supports, I give you either a direction or a little bit of a prompt or a question to help you develop your ideas so you can write your answers. So for setting, some additional little questions that you might want to use to write your response, you could write about, where does most of the story take place? You could write about how the ravine makes Vinny feel. Or you could talk about what details make the ravine seem scary. There's a lot of easy stuff you could dig up there. You could talk about the physical environment, like the jungle and the water, but you also absolutely need to mention the stuff about Butchie because it really affects the setting, the place of the story, I guess also the time. It's 2 weeks after this boy did what all the teenagers are doing in the story. So you need to make sure you mention that also. So you can see how this is set up. Each of them has the initial question and then a couple little other additional questions to help you answer it. Use those answers to develop your writing response. And now we have part 3, my favorite part, the creative writing options. So I'm going to give you additional help for number 20, which is Vinny's diary entry. I'm going to give you some sentence starters and ideas. So for the sentence starters, you want to use these to get the first half of a sentence, and then you want to finish it with your own idea. So for the first one I have, today was one of the scariest days I've ever had because, and you might want to put in there something about Vinny experiencing that terrifying day that he had, even though it ended in a peaceful moment. Another sentence starter, let's go to all the way at the bottom, the last one. Looking back on everything, I've realized that. So that would be a great sentence starter at the end of your story or the end of your journal entry to have Vinny look back and think what he's learned about peer pressure and fear and doing what he believes is right instead of what other people try to get him to do. But it's not just sentence starters. I also have an idea bank for you. I have ideas about feelings about the ravine, peer pressure, Vinny's mother, and Vinny's decision at the end. So you can use any of these sentence starters, and you can use the ideas from the idea bank to get your creative writing flowing too if you want to do the journal option.